But
it's really cool.
We got the kit.
Did it take?
What did it taste like?
Would it taste like beer?
Well, the joke, like I said, it was. If it was your first pint of the night, it was. It was. We made it a lot stronger than we needed to, so it was. We nicknamed it the rocket fuel. We had it.
Hello and welcome to this week's No Idea Yet. I'm your host, Freddie. I'm here with Johnny and Alistair, and today we're going to be delving into an intoxicating subject. Ooh. So, as always, they have no idea what I'm about to be talking about, and I like to give a bit of reasoning behind my inspirations. Now, as I've said in many episodes, it's because of a news article, or it's because of a debate, or it's because of a thing I saw on the internet. Well, this week it's my dad's birthday soon. Okay.
I think I read that actually on BBC, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, so I was looking into what I could get him, and if he's listening to this, I'm sorry if I didn't get this for you. But I thought, well, he likes to make his own kefir, which is a fermented drink. He also likes to make his own sauerkraut, which is strong, but it's good for you, good for the gut. And I ended up falling down a rabbit hole of home brewing of beers and wines and ciders. Now, I don't know if this topic today will stay just purely on the making of beer and wine, or if it will end up on the whole alcohol subject with health and legality. But today, I'd like to talk about making your own alcoholic drinks at home, and maybe beyond. So, well, actually, I'm going to ask you a quick question, and then I'm going to give you. That's right. I have an "Am I the Arsehole?" story.
Yay!
It's really weird.
I like it.
It's really weird. But yeah. So I was just going to ask: do either of you have any background knowledge or ideas about making your own alcohol at home? I'm going to start with Johnny first, because I think I know a little bit that Alistair has an idea.
I've made kimchi before, which is fermenting things. That's one thing, and it kind of worked. And it was really funny because Abby just hated it for the largest amount of time of just having kimchi in the fridge and having to periodically open it outside so it didn't blow up and it stank. And she's like, are you even going to like it? And I did it like 80% correct. So it's kind of like the end product was like, okay, not perfect. Could have been a bit better. I think I didn't soak the cabbage long enough. That's not alcohol though. It's okay. I quite like kimchi, but it's not the one that I made.
No, that's totally. Maybe we'll have to change this to actually just being like making your own things at home that are edible, because that's pretty cool. Like,
all right, baking then.
No, that can't be about baking.
No, that's my only. I think my. Oh wait, no, I do have something. It doesn't count as making your alcohol, but we made blueberry gin. All that counts of is just putting gin in a big dugong and then putting sugar in it and blueberries. And that was it for X amount of months for Christmas presents.
Fair enough. That sounds pretty cool. But I mean, I tasted that gin and I also ate those blueberries.
I forgot. Just ate like 100 alcoholic blueberries and they tasted awful. They just tasted of alcohol, like when you get flavored water, which is mainly water with a bit of like something, which just kind of like when you don't put enough cordial in something. It's just like alcohol, straight alcohol with a bit of gin and blueberry in a little bite.
Well, I ate them until I got a stomachache, but like I was eating them, and it's one of those things that like you can chew, but you're trying not to taste it. Does that make sense? You're like, you had to eat it like that.
Moving your tongue away from them like that.
Yeah. Exactly. Alistair, you have a bit of experience in this, I believe.
Well, I hope you remember me. If you don't remember, I'll be very disappointed. It was my 21st birthday. You were there, and everyone, you guys made that drink for me. That was a lot of the homebrew beer that we made. That was our first effort actually. We basically just brewed beer when we were at uni, which is, successful would be a strong word. It did what we wanted it to do, which was make cheap, quite strong beer. But it was a lot of like the thing that I enjoyed about it as a fact that I thought was quite interesting, which I will share with our listeners and everyone now, was basically about why wine and everything is all why you never see a wine that's more than 14% or around 14%. The fact that all spirits are strong that are distilled because to make them stronger, or fortified or whatever, to make them stronger, because the yeast inside the liquid, right, when they're, so you basically, beer's super simple, 4 ingredients, water, sugar, hops, and yeast, and then obviously you can have other stuff as well, but that's the base. And then you've got the yeast basically eat the sugar and turn the liquid into alcohol, and then when it gets to 14%, the yeast, it becomes so alcoholic because obviously it's just like poisonous, that it then kills all the yeast. So that's why it cuts off at 14%, which I always thought was quite interesting. Maybe not, maybe it is, I don't know. But yeah, no, so yeah, that limited experience for sure. I definitely not a home brewer. We did it. I said, well, we did it a few times, but
it's really cool.
We got the kit.
Did it take? What did it taste like? Would it taste like beer?
Well, the joke, like I said, it was. If it was your first pint of the night, it was. Ooh. it was. We made it a lot stronger than we needed to, so it was. We nicknamed it the rocket fuel. We had it as the rocket fuel.
Was it like the Frosty Jacks of beer? You don't like
it was it was definitely a Kestrel super brew of it wasn't that bad today. It was not too bad, but it was pretty effective at getting us pretty merry.
I did actually, I'm sorry, forget that we drank that, but obviously for you it's something that you did over a long period of time. For me,
we did it. Obviously didn't do it our year abroad, but we did it. Yeah, we did it both in my first time our year.
Yeah, for me it was like a night that I remember some great parts of
it. It was a fun weekend. I have to say that was a very fun weekend.
So for our listeners, I genuinely did forget that Alistair has brewed his own beer, which actually I think is going to tie into this nicely, because that means that we can ask you some questions maybe, because I have no idea.
That was basically the extent of my knowledge of what I just said. But no, okay, it was a really fun experience. We're
going to be talking about wines and beers and maybe a bit of cider, as well as other drinks, maybe like vodkas and stuff. I'd like to kind of delve a little bit into like the history of it, because I have no idea. Like, I know that it's like illegal at parts of time.
Yeah, prohibition was very interesting, I think, because obviously, like, the whole thing of beer is it's so easy to make, because so few ingredients. As long as there's obviously ways to make it nicer and that's nice, but to make it alcoholic is, that's why obviously alcohol's been around for so much longer than other drugs. I think because
just leaves apples out in a bowl and eventually they'll become alcoholic. So it's so hard to make a prohibition, because then we just do it out of anything.
It's like, people were telling me here that the rule is in Germany that, I know I keep banging on about Germany, but I'm not here, right?
That's fine.
That you can only have 4 ingredients, I think.
Yeah.
For any beer.
Very strict, yeah.
And it's like a purity.
So not fruit beer then?
I think you can, but it has to be
because
the hops is what I think. Yeah, but
so it wouldn't be. You wouldn't be able to call it technically a beer. It would be a.
Maybe not. I mean, again, Google that as I'll give you that's your homework. There you go.
German fruit beer.
Someone. So in my so when I was looking up kits, I mean, I only did this today, really. So I haven't got any knowledge about this yet. That's why I want to talk about it today. I want to talk about like ease of it, like if it's a good idea, if people like the idea as well. So a guy, I was just having a little look, very very briefly about this, and someone made their own beer in on the South Pole, and they used I've got this. I'm on the largest block of ice in the world. I've got the freshest water, and they made beer out of it. And they said that this was a beer person, and they said that like water purity is a real issue. If you try and make beer out of with chlorine or something in it, then it's not going to be good. And I was like, that's interesting. I kind of thought it'd be more about the hops, but actually, I guess if your base ingredient is not good, your final product isn't going to be top quality, is it?
Does chlorine kill yeast as well?
I think that is the reason. Yeah.
I feel like there's not that much chlorine in drinking water or in the water themselves. Otherwise, it would you probably notice swimming pools already got a very very tiny amount. So
all right, when they took fluoride out of tap water, people's teeth got worse. They had to go to the dentist.
Yeah, no, that's why it's not to control the population. It's just for our teeth.
Yeah. I'm going to look that up. Like chlorine in water. Because I don't know, maybe it is there, and like, or maybe some places it's so bad. There's, when they say don't drink the tap water, I mean, I always do.
Oh no, if you, I don't know anyone that did in China. Like, if you lived there, you would not drink the tap water. Like, it's
like Dubai and desert places, because it's the water on tap is not good because you're in the middle of a desert.
No.
Also, look up.
It was okay. You turn it would be like brown as well. You come out like brown if you don't.
Yeah.
Don't really want to wash my hands in this. Certainly, I'm going to make a pint of it, but yeah.
When it's
But yeah,
brown, I
sorry,
guess I draw the line.
No, in China, you really wouldn't want to drink the tap water, but yeah.
Fair enough. Would you like to hear an Am I the Arsehole?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
So when you're looking for anything, if you Google home brewing, you're going to get beer fanatics or Dungeons and Dragons fanatic, because home brewing, as it turns out, is kind of like a term used for when you make up a character or something, kind of using the rules of the game, but actually using them, kind of bending them to suit yourself. So unfortunately, I couldn't find a discussion exactly about homebrewing, but I did find a lot about alcohol. And I was reading through some, and this one caught my eye because of just how absurd it is. But they wrote it so seriously. So, are you ready for me to get in on this?
Yeah, we are. Aye, Captain.
Because I can't see you because I'm looking at the story.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, go for it.
Okay. Again, no title, just so that I had the surprise. Story goes: I went to a good friend's housewarming party. I brought with me a somewhat fancy, inverted commas, bottle of Cabernet that cost around $80. Now, I'm just going to put the site here. $80 seems like a lot for a bottle of wine. For me, anyway, that's extortionate. But okay. Not the fanciest, maybe, but I don't usually ball out that much on wine. I mean, neither do I. The party was going well, and I noticed my wine had been opened and half had been drunk. Somebody told me they were enjoying it and started laughing uproariously. She told me to ask the host why. Confused, I did so. In fact, I found her and she was very drunk. She told me my wine was a hit, but I was mortified to find out that her and a few others were using my wine, among others, for making wine enemas. I thought it was a joke, but she was completely serious and took me to the second bathroom where a few people were gathered, wasted, with enema kits or whatever they're called, I don't know the right word, and a bunch of towels on the floor. Somebody was in the shower, pants off, laughing, and the other people were encouraging her to hold it in. I was absolutely aghast. I asked her to clarify if she had used my wine for an enema, and she had. I stormed back out to the kitchen, grabbed my bottle, and left the party. I was furious for my wine to be used in this way. I got an angry text the next day that it was impolite to take back a housewarming gift, especially when the wine was already opened. I have since heard from other friends that I overreacted, and that it's not my business how people enjoy wine that I gift them, and even some people saying that wine enemas are becoming common and that I shouldn't be so judgmental. I don't know what to think. I find the wine enema disgusting, but at least use cheap wine if you have to. I just don't know. Was I wrong to take back my wine when it was used for enemas?
Wow. Oh, wow.
That's amazing. That's so
I
funny.
thought
I
it would
mean,
be
first of
Dungeons and Dragons, I won't lie. And so, how's it Dungeons and Dragons get into this? Why doesn't an enema happen?
I was thinking, like,
Oh, yeah,
the dude who's
I might
spending
cut
$80 on a bottle of wine and then go to the party with. It feels like there's a real disconnect. Like maybe he's friends from work or something. He doesn't sound like this is just normal social circle by a long shot.
I know people in the comments were saying, the thing is, this is a good one, I think, because it is a mixed bag of if they're the asshole or not. Because if you take it at its really basic form, someone gave a gift, they were unhappy with how the other people used it, and so tried taking it back. That's the core of it.
At first, I thought you meant they just went to a house party, they brought a bottle of nice wine for her, and somebody started using it. Because then I'd be like, oh, well, that's fair enough for them to take it back. But if it's a gift, and I guess if the person you gifted it to wanted to do that, then I guess fair play. If somebody else decided, oh, well, it's gifted anyway, we're going to use it this.
Yeah.
Well,
I think about the enema thing, because they can do whatever they want with it. Really, obviously, it's a weird thing to do, and it's especially at a party where there's. I mean, like I said, each your own. But my thing is, like I said, I definitely think you're a bit of an arsehole if you gift something like that and then take it back. It's just like, well, that's the whole point of a gift is you don't take it back, and it's. I don't know. That's my take on it.
Yeah, it depends. Look, it depends if they knew axiology. If they knew the value of the bottle, would they have done the same? Do you like for them of like they might have thought it's a $4 bottle of wine, so they're like, yeah, let's do that. They don't realize he spent a lot of money and it's a nice gift. So that could be it's like if they knew the value, maybe
it depends on the type. Yeah, it depends on the type of party as well, doesn't it? Massively, surely.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got to ask them. Am I out the loop? Is this something I mean, I've heard of people putting other stuff up there, but I mean, and I know that people do the tampons thing where you soak a tampon in alcohol, because obviously, like, the blood membrane barrier in the mucous membrane, that's it, in this large intestine, it goes straight into the blood. But I mean, doing it with wine, is it because it's strong? Is it like, I mean, why?
It's a waste to wine.
There was a Darwin Awards. Have you heard Darwin Awards?
Yeah.
There was one about a guy who did that with like a bottle of cherry brandy or something, and just killed himself because he can obviously very easily kill himself from alcohol poisoning. Could do that, like it's. Oh yeah, well, it even feels like butt chugging, right? They call it.
I mean, like, I do feel it's a bit. It depends on what. I think I've seen like videos on Reddit of where someone's like a major prank, and they turned everything as a prank for their friends. While they were away, they had the keys to their house or their apartment, and they turned everything upside down, including taking the toilet seat off, turning it upside down. They had furniture upside down, the bed they put upside down. I think, and it's like, as a prank between mates, I think as long as they're helping to put it back, funny, ridiculous, and what a story. But loads of comments, but I can't believe this. The disrespectful, that's disgusting. Like they did that, and like, I think yes, if they're not really your mates, and like yeah, that's well harsh to do somebody. But if you're all mates, surely you've got the keys to their apartment. You're close enough that you could be helping him sort it back out again, and it's kind of like pranky. So
I hope their holiday went really well. Because if they came home after a bad holiday, like that would not be so funny.
Yeah, but it's a thing of like knowing the room.
Know the room. Yeah, but
if you went to a house party,
you know the audience,
and like you didn't realize they're going to be doing wine enemas. I mean, like, I don't know.
Doing wine.
Like you thought it was going to be a fancier affair than it was, put it that way. So
yeah.
Like if it's like a dinner party and you go with a nice bottle of wine, and then everyone's like, oh, if you're grossed out by it, and that's kind of your bag, that's fine. You can leave the party, but I think taking the wine with you is still a bit of a.
I think it's at the end of the day, it's a gift, and although I think it could be disrespectful to the gift that you've given, it's still a case of it's not you've gifted it and just walk out if you don't like it, and know that you pay that money for them.
Yeah, a more common maybe situation with a very similar vibe would be I give you an 80 quid bottle of rum or something, and I'm like, here you go, and you're like, oh thanks, and just start chugging it. Like,
or worse, mixed it. If you give someone a really expensive bottle of whiskey or something, and then they mix it with Coke or something like that, then you'd be like, okay, you're
put Coke into the fresh bottle they just opened. It's like you put all of 20 mils of Coke, but you've ruined the bottle.
So in that case, I mean, I'd definitely say something like, hey, don't do that. Like, it's worth not doing that. But if they continue, whatever, that's their choice, right? Like, I mean, you can just tell other people about this story of the time that you
You'd be like, oh, that's sacrilege, jokingly, but obviously, like I said, it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to be about it, you could say, oh, by the way, that's like an $80 bottle, by the way. It's quite nice. I wanted you to enjoy it. I mean, you can do what you want, but yeah.
I think that makes it sound way. I think once you're going to giving it for that, like just give it. Like I said, I think if you start bringing up the price, I think I said I don't think that's
I guess.
But I don't think that's
it depends if it's kind of like, yeah.
But in the end, they are the asshole, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Or is it a mixture?
I think obviously at the end of things it's kind of amusing and it's kind of a bit weird. But it's like. I don't think he's the asshole. I think, like I said, I think it's very poor form to like I said, I think a level of generosity is there that you then once you go back on it, you just come across as really sort of cheap and I don't know. Anyway, that's
I think it's that thing as well of whose head you're in. For him, it's like it was so disrespectful to me because they realize they got this, and it's like no, they don't realize. For all intents and purposes, you just got a cheap bottle of wine from Sainsbury's before he came and said, "Oh, I'm here for the party," kind of thing. That attitude, and then somebody wouldn't care. Whereas if you put loads more care and thought into it than actually was required. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it depends whose head you're in.
So does anyone else just really miss parties after hearing that story?
Seeing people.
I don't know what kind of parties we're going to be having later this year, mate, hopefully. But
man, that's the thing. I'm in like in the middle of nowhere, which is totally fine. But this, it's totally fine. Like I know that I'm not missing out on stuff, getting my head down and doing work and blah blah. But if I'm still here when everything opens, I think I might it'd crush me.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it depends on the age. Last thing, depends on the age of the person. If you're in your 20s, assume that if you bring alcohol to a party, it's gonna get drunk in whatever way possible. If you're in your 30s, it's kind of like you're your 30s and it's like a housewarming party and it's all like professionals. It's like, why are you doing wine enemas? Like kids are in bed kind of thing. Maybe like that's a bit of it depends what
I really
age.
thought that.
I think if you're like late 30s, everyone's like whatever you do wine enemas. It's kind of like I guess you would expect if you bring a wine bottle, somebody to treat it a certain way. If you're in your 20s, like no, don't expect anything. That's your fault for buying.
Well, if you're in your 20s and you're buying 8-year-old bottles of wine to go, yeah, you're doing fine. So what you
Yeah.
I mean, imagine though that, like, I don't know if any of you have actually seen South Park. There's an episode where they figure out that, like, if you eat food backwards, it's better for you. So they put food up their bum, and then they vomit out the poo, as it were. But it becomes like totally like normal. Like, so they're there at a dinner party. It's like, oh, so hello, Shanna. Hey, you've had a good time this week with your thing, and then they're like, but it becomes normal. I mean, imagine if it was kind of like wine enemas were just like it was more formal and polite way, because you don't feel sick like in your stomach. Maybe if you drink too much, you can eat perfectly.
just pass out or die from alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, you just
politely. You
just only need a
politely
glass.
die in their bathroom.
Was it vomitorium, something like that for the Romans?
Oh, the Romans.
No, that's a misconception about.
Oh, is it?
What because it was called that because of like it was just like a place where people walked through. It had nothing to do with vomiting or something. But yeah, I think
Did they do that or not? Is that something to look up?
That's one of those. No, I don't actually know. There may be that. I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure.
Oh, add that to the list.
Yeah, did Romans
things that we don't know yet?
So, like I said, I'd like to ideally focus a bit on the home brewing part because I actually have no idea about that, and I know it's a lot of people's sincere hobbies. And no, we're not going to talk about hobbies again. But do either of you want to maybe shed some light on what you know about the process of making alcohol? I know you said a bit about just leaving some vegetables and stuff around. It doesn't have to be about beer, it could be about wine or vodka, or what the difficulties, or maybe what equipment you'd even need to do it. I have like a bucket. Do you just put it in the bucket? Some way of pressurizing it? I don't know.
You don't need the pressure at all for it.
I know
you can obviously, but if you want it to have the CO2, obviously, like I said, beers that would do. But yeah, you don't need anything to do with pressure really.
I know one thing about moonshine. I went to Tennessee and I got some moonshine because they sell it. It's like 60%. That's something stupid. And it's called Blue Flame. And the idea was when you had the distilleries, and also the idea of dodgy alcohol makes you go blind, or that joke of like hillbillies being blind from alcohol, or whatever, because they grew up in the hills or whatever. And
is that a joke? I thought that was real.
Oh yeah, I think it's because I've seen it on like American Dad, where they make jokes about going blind or whatever. And the reason why is because if you distill it wrong, you produce methanol, and the flame burns red. So the idea is you meant to flame proof. You meant to check the flame. If it's red, it's going to make you blind because it's methanol, and if it's blue, it's ethanol, and therefore you make it alcohol, and that's the good stuff. Hence why they call this moonshine Blue Flame. This place got it. So that's one thing I know, and I know that's the pressure, and I think it's like evaporating stuff, and then they're having it distill and coils, which are cool, and then that's all I got.
Okay, but he's the one that's doing the recording.
I can hear you now. I didn't hear anything then.
Okay,
that's weird. It's funny.
Yeah, I just stopped because it's his recording, so I assume.
Yeah, he's frozen, so we're like, oh wait, but then we were like, wait. I was like, I can hear you, Freddie. He was like, yeah, I can hear you.
It's an internet.
You were just there like.
It's just that, like Alistair mentioned about the yeast, right? That the sugars and excrete alcohols as waste products, then that they die from their own waste products when it gets above 14%. So yeah, I have no idea how you distill something to make it mad strong, because obviously vodka is like 40 or 36.5 or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think it's ideal. I think you just evaporate it and then it sort of goes back, and then it goes back into a different vat. And
because the alcohol's got like a lower temperature of boiling.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Like I said, I've never made anything stronger than beer, so I don't know. I can look it up for next week, of course. But I know you can make vodka out of potatoes if you want to.
Yeah, why is potato skins or something? Isn't it?
I assume potatoes, but
I've got
just mash it up.
I've got a fun fact about the Great Irish Whiskey Fire, which is just one of my favourite ones. Wow, I'll quickly find out the exact number of people who died.
Okay. Also,
I saw a cool thing.
Might not be research.
Which is the thing about how they make Baileys we watched over Christmas was quite interesting. But how like actually getting to mix the stuff and the cream and the whiskey together for Baileys is actually really difficult with the whiskey. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure it is. And then actually to mix them together is really difficult because they just separate if you do it normally. So they have to blast them through this like super fine hose that almost like mixes them together on like a sort of not molecular level, but like super
emulsifying. Right?
Yeah, aerate them. I found the thing. So there was a whiskey fire in Ireland, and 13 people died because of it. They didn't die because it was a whiskey distillery factory that set on fire. It didn't die from burns. 13 people died from alcohol poisoning because whiskey ran down the streets. People were filling up anything they could find with the whiskey on the street, and 13 people died of alcohol poisoning. I think that's just hilarious. It's like, oh no, the factory's on fire, but people died because they got too drunk. 1875, that's when it happened. I think that's just hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, I heard recently, I mean, just a kind of separate-ish similar note, that some people, like farmers around where I am, used to be paid in beer. I don't know if it's true, but then they got, like, people paying them got caught, like, what do you call it, when you put water in something to make it,
Pouring down?
Watering down.
Dilute.
Yeah, diluting the beer, and they rioted and like set fire to the town hall and tried to hang the mayor.
Wow, that's huge.
I reckon, if you, I'm sure you guys have done like manual work at some like different manual jobs. And when you get to the end of like a day's work like that, then you have a beer. That is a different. That hits different.
Different.
So it's different, man. But no, if you've done a full day's, if you're a farmer, especially back in the way, I was I don't know. Yeah, you definitely you'd you'd have your priorities in order.
So when you get like smoky whiskies and like peaty, like when you have like a peaty whiskey, I always thought like, well, where does it come from? It's like a flavour, something like that. And what they do is, so whiskey is either like you have like Scottish or American. One's corn, one's I think it's grain, something like that. One's one. That's how it's made from. The alcohol comes from. And when you have a peaty whiskey, what they do is they actually dig up peat, then they burn it, and the smoke then wafts over the grains, which are then used. And that's where the taste comes from. And it's just blowing that smoke over. So, and I saw this huge factory that they're doing it. And it's just, you see people digging up peat. It was on, I think it was, I don't know if it's the same one that you were watching, Alistair, where they show you how to make Baileys and stuff like that.
I think it was that Greg Wallace one.
Yes,
So
it was good. It was a good one.
Great.
And how they changed the distillery stuff. It's cool. Yeah.
He was talking about, they were talking about how the flavour from the whiskey was, a lot of it comes from obviously not for the peat one, but a lot of it comes from the barrels that they keep. Yeah, so they're like sort of 20 years or whatever age.
It's like just Desperados. The like its whiskey flavour is only from the fact that was it tequila? I can't remember. They just
have whiskey flavour.
Yeah, it's meant to have like a taste. All they do is they just put it in barrels. Yeah, that's it. There's no flavour added. They just put the beer in barrels for a bit, then move them on, and that's where it gets that flavour from.
It makes you think actually, like about where flavour of things, like a flavour that you associate with something, isn't necessarily inherent to that thing. It's just that you have it together all the time, or it's always used. Like I can't think of an example off the top of my head.
Well, that's one like sweets, isn't it? Those sweets that are like
bananas,
banana flavored sweets. Like, what do they taste like? They don't taste like bananas, but they taste like something. And it's like I don't know who was on the committee for that, but that's good.
Yeah, blue raspberry.
I've heard that banana flavour is an old type of banana that we don't have anymore. Now we only have Cavendish, but I don't know if that's true or like a fun internet fact that's not true.
This episode, I think, is we sort of maybe know some things. Yeah.
Well, okay. So, do either of you know anything about history or legality, maybe, of making your own alcohol in any country? There's a lot of info on America, obviously, but do you know anything about like legality of making your own booze?
Obviously, the big thing is you can make it. You can make whatever you want booze-wise, but just selling it is where you get into legal issues more so than currently anyway in the UK. But yeah, tax basically, and
as long as
and also you have to have a license to sell alcohol. So you know, that's why it's an off license. Yeah, you can take them off.
I knew somebody.
You got an off license or an on license, right? But there's a place. So.
Somebody worked at a pub. He was 18, something like that. He's just serving drinks, and he served an undercover cop, and then got like, you like the thing of like you're selling to an underage person. Not an undercover cop. They got somebody to go in for the police, who was underage. He sold them a drink, not even thinking about it. And then I can't remember. Ramifications happened. It was kind of like, life. Like, I don't know if you know, like a criminal record or something like that. It's like, oh man, it's just something, especially working in pubs, because people just, especially if you're busy or something like that. I'm like, yeah, and people look older than they are. It's mad.
Man, I mean, I was working in that bar that I won't say the name of, I guess, for reasons, in Manchester, and there was there was a gang that was nearby that would come in, and they'd have this kid get the beers and stuff for them. I mean, like, the owner of the bar was just like, you have to serve them, like, no matter what, like, you serve them. And if they say they're not going to pay, you just say, okay, like, you just deal with it. It's not worth you getting like hurt, and it's not worth like the business stuff. He didn't actually say it in such a nice way, but that happened. And so this kid, who was literally like 12, by the way, would like come and massive crisp 50 quid notes. But also the thing is, like, serving an underage kid, but you could see he wasn't drinking any of it as well. Like, he would just go over and give it to them and stand to the side, and they'd like tell him to go do something. Like,
the funny one now is that, obviously I don't know about you. I don't know if you guys got ID'd very often pre-lockdown and everything anyway. But ever since lockdown, you don't get ID'd anymore. You're just wearing a mask, and if you buy alcohol now, they just like sell it to you regardless. I mean, like, this is a great time to be an underage drinker now. Like, obviously, it's not because you can't do anything, but it's bad, right?
This is
the
not
videos from
like,
it are hilarious.
I was in London and I was buying some beer, and they were like, right, can I see some ID? Well, I pulled the mask down, and then they said, right, see some ID. And I was like, these are non-alcoholic beers. And they're like, oh. I was like, I'm sorry, I forgot my ID, but they're non-alcoholic beers. And they didn't serve me. Because they'd asked for ID, and I didn't provide it. And so on those grounds, they're like, well, if we've asked for ID and you haven't got it, you can't have it. And they're like, I'm really sorry. And I was like, well, I'll go get it then. So when I got my ID, walked back. And that's how I got alcoholic beer.
When I was 16, I worked at a hairdresser's, and they asked me to get filters or something like that for smoking. And I can't remember if I did or I didn't get served. Something like that. And it was a case of like, I think I didn't. And it was a case of, like, oh, it doesn't matter if it's not about the tobacco buying, it's just about the smoking, like any like paraphernalia you're buying. Yeah. I mean, should they have asked a 16-year-old to go get smoking stuff? I don't know.
Probably not. But, like I said, I think some people clearly have a more relaxed view of the law than others, I feel.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah. That goes back to ethics, doesn't it?
Oh, there we go. Actually, we didn't go into law, must be that. But yeah. Sorry.
Actually, yeah.
Go on, Fred.
Okay, well, I can continue asking questions, or I can sum up and we can finish thoughts.
You can do a final one.
Okay. Are either of you, so let's say you guys started making some beers or some wines. I mean, the wine thing's interesting as well. I don't know if you go into it. Like, how bothered would you be about just general health of you? I mean, having potentially a massive increase to your availability of alcohol, like, in front of you, and B, how that might potential addiction. Like, as thinking about people who potentially hide their alcohol addiction behind a hobby.
And a hobby.
Hobby and advice, yeah, covering the two. I mean, I definitely, the reason I haven't brewed any, I've still got the kit for, obviously, but the reason I haven't done any of it since uni is because there's no way living by myself I would be drinking that much, because obviously it does go off, obviously, so if you don't drink it, but I mean, there's maybe a bit of that. I think, obviously, I mean, I remember when I was much younger, we went to this like friend of the family. He had this New Year's party, and he had beer on tap in his house, and we were like, wow, that's that's pretty next level. And I remember there were some pretty full-time drinkers. They were there. I don't know, it's a weird different view of it, but I don't know. Yeah, but go on, Johnny, sorry.
Yeah, for bringing it up, do you know the idea of, like, if you want to do something right, do it yourself? And that's definitely not one of the places that I think would go to, of like brewing anything. like if I was to brew a lager, for instance, like, no, I'm just going to trust that I can't do that as successfully or as cheaply as I can just from buying it. Like, most of the time, like, I think I drink sporadically as well, so it'd be a case of, like, I'd make someone be like, I'm not even in the mood.
It's not a good, it's definitely one of those things where you can just get a much nicer thing from
and it's definitely that thing as well, like, even for me, like, if you've got a fridge full of beer and a fridge not full of beer, the amount that you're drink is going to be substantially different just because of it's there. Like definitely, if I get like a pack of stubbies, I can drink it like a lot quicker than if they're not there. Like, I don't get that temptation, if you know what I mean. But when they're there, so if you brewed like 10 bottles of beer, you can bet you're probably going to drink them all. Whereas compared to if you went
like
to
40 pints, mate, in a go, you brew about 40 pints. So when you do it,
wow, goodbye, Alistair, just for the week. But yeah, compared to just having 2 pints that you buy.
And then
from
it'd be,
the
I
shop.
have to drink because otherwise I'm wasting. I've already paid for it all, and I'm going to go home. So I have
Think
to
of the
drink at least
starving
8 pints
children
a
in
night
Africa.
in order to,
Oh,
exactly.
no. Like, but I'm guessing there's a low risk of making like methanol or making a beer that's actually gonna make you ill is pretty low.
I think there's zero chance you can make an ethanol or there's you can go blind from homebrew beer. But
so you're just there with just a drink. You're like, it won't kill me straight away.
Once after the second time we done it, it was about 50p a pint we were doing. So it was definitely an economic way to drink beer. But again, like, we were students. So when we were living in a student house and we had lots of parties and things, it was great. It was perfect for that. So it had its place for sure, but I definitely wouldn't be rushing out to do it again. Now that we're no longer in that setting. But yeah, especially with the lockdown, doesn't exactly lend itself to it. Hey, maybe some parties.
You could just
have
like
about it.
lemonade.
I'm really interested. Like, I like growing things whenever I get around to it. The problem is not in one place. I'm not going to do it now, but like, I just like the idea of fine tuning a drink and being like, I really enjoy the taste of this. This is a lot of fun, but I am also worried about the effects of. I mean, I'm really bad at throwing away the rest of a plate of food. I have to finish the food, or I have to put it in the fridge and eat it later. So I have no idea what I'd be like with a half-brewed batch of beer. Like, just pour that effort in because I have to drink.
It's same like Bake Off. If you're baking, like people get the perfect recipe. Like when you're cooking like spaghetti, it's like you can keep tweaking it because it may be a meal that you eat regularly. Whereas if you're baking a cake, you're gonna have to bake a lot of cakes and throw them away because realistically, or give them away or sell them, something like that. Because realistically, you're not gonna eat all that. Same with drinking. Like, is it Kylie Jenner or something like that? They perfected their tequila, or like Dwayne Johnson's done it, and like Ryan Reynolds, and it's always like, have you perfected it? How much have you actually like been drinking it, or did somebody make it for you and you're like, I don't like that?
We're full-time alcoholic now, and I've perfected my tequila.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like,
the taste, but yeah.
How can you perfect a drink without just? I guess it's tasting, isn't it? You have to swill it, spit it, don't you? I guess.
Well, you could just taste like one taste, you have to chug it. Okay, so my last point, just because I'm curious about this, before I leave you to go and do your research, is do you know anything about actually like if you were making spirits, like the difference between making a rum and a whiskey and a tequila and a brandy and a cognac and a Cavassier? Like, do you actually know the difference between how they make these?
I'm assuming initially ingredients, and then there's no whiskey. They changed how they distilled it. For like they used to have huge like story high stills, and they changed it to like different ways of doing it. So I imagine some will be ingredients, some will actually be the still themselves, and like you're saying, maybe like how you barrel it as well. There's got to be, assuming like the ingredients, the method of actually getting the alcohol, and then how you store it before serving it. My guess.
You basically covered that, yeah. I think, like I said, I don't know, but I can imagine, if you showed someone, 3 different meals, and we're like, how do you think you make these 3 different things? It's like, yeah, I reckon different ingredients, different way of making it, different.
Well, okay,
different
well,
equipment.
that's gonna be both of yours homework. One of those is just to pick a spirit or a drink that you don't know really how they make it. And I mean, we've got everything from Cointreau, like our orange drink, Bailey's.
Did you choose one for us? So me and Alistair don't.
If I don't know what you know, do I?
I don't know any of them really. I don't think.
No,
okay.
Really.
Does anyone like Cointreau? Because I have no idea if it's orange. That's it. Johnny? Okay, you can have that.
I'll take that.
Okay, and Alistair, would you like to pick from any of those like
so Bailey's the only one I know vaguely about. So yeah, I mean, I can just do whiskey if you want. So I'm kind of quite curious about that.
Do you know which one?
Oh, I kind of know whiskey. Well, I do. I do like
about...
rum would probably be more.
Okay, go for it. See if you can figure out, or if people can even make their own rum, or how you go about it, or how it's made, or something interesting about that. Because I don't actually know. I'm actually going to give myself whiskey because I don't know anything about whiskey and I don't like it really. So maybe if I research, I'll care more, if that makes sense. So I'm going to look up whiskey. And I was just going to say that we just on what we've touched on that we're not sure about in today's half was chlorine in water, question mark. Prohibition in America, again, question mark. I think only recently people can, in some states, even make their own alcohol. Vomitorium. I'm going to check if that's true. And Bailey's cream. I was kind of curious about, like, I still don't get how they made Bailey's. Maybe I'll have to look that up.
Watch the episode, mate. Great episode of the
It's a really good episode.
Okay, I'll just watch that. That's my own research. Greg Wallace. Yeah. And maybe if we come up to it, like how they make spirits above 14%, that was something that we both mentioned a little bit about. And so, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this first half of alcohol and its intoxicating abilities when you put it up your bum.
Who knew, hey?
Please,
You learn something new every day.
Exactly. If you've enjoyed this first half, please stick around after the break for the second half, which is 2 minutes for you, but a week for us.
Hey listeners, if you've made it this far and you have anything, maybe a product, another podcast, a charity that you'd like us to pop into our halftime interlude, please let us know at noideayetpodcast@gmail.com.
Welcome back after the break, everyone. It's been a minute for you, but it's been a week for us. So I hope you have time to grab yourself a drink, whether it be water, non-alcoholic beer, or some delicious Cointreau, and settle in for the second half of No Idea Yet. So, just as a little warning, there might be some difference in sound quality because somebody went and got themselves a really fancy new mic. And I'm sure you can all guess who it wasn't if you listen to my jarring tones. So we're back here with Alistair and Johnny, and we were talking about alcohol and perhaps how to make it. Would either of you like to go first with the homework that I set you before I ramble on about the stuff I found about prohibition?
I don't mind going first. The first thing I wanted to look up was German fruit beer, because you said it was like German beer can only have like 4 different ingredients for the thing.
Yeah.
And the things I learned is it originally came from Bavaria, which predates Germany, and it was originally to stop wheat and rye prices rising, which would increase the price of bread. Because if you use different stuff other than those 4 ingredients, so if you use wheat and rye for making beer, then it meant it was used more, prices went up, bread was more expensive. So they did that to stop bread prices going up, which I think is mad. And in Germany, they either call it an ale or a malty drink to get around the beer thing. So you can have German fruit beer. It's not technically beer, it would be a malty drink or an ale. And it's the world's longest running food law, and it's 500 years old. Yeah. That's what I learned about German fruit beer.
That was really cool. That's cool. Because, yeah, so wait, Bavaria, I should really know this, wasn't part of Germany. It was his own thing.
Because I know from Dan Carling's Blueprints from Armageddon that Germany was like 40 years old in World War One. And before then, I think Bavaria, I don't know if it's somewhere in between Austria and Germany, something like that, Bavaria was. I may be completely wrong.
I mean, I'm in it right now.
Oh. Go outside and ask.
You really should, but I mean, with a mask on, of course. Okay, cool. Alice, go on.
I was going to say, I also looked up vomitoriums because we chatted about that, and it's nothing to do with vomiting. They never did that. That's just bulimia, which is something they didn't practice apparently. Well, they may have, but not widespread. And the vomitorium bit was because vomit in like the word from Latin or something means to spew, to throw up, stuff like that. So that's why I say vomit for throwing up. But it's actually vomitoriums were entrances or exits to a stadium or a theatre. So it's kind of like the vomitoriums would spew crowds into the streets. So that's what it is. It's an adjacent room.
I feel like I vaguely said that last week, not quite that eloquently, but something along those lines.
Yeah, you did. You said it. Yeah, it wasn't for throwing up.
But yeah, no, that's cool.
I do like the image of people being vomited by a building out onto the street.
Yeah.
That's what happens in bars at closing hour, to be honest.
Mm.
No, that's
So
cool.
cool. So yeah, Bavaria. I've just checked. I'm sure all of our German listeners are fuming. It's just a landlocked basic area within Germany.
Ugh.
It's like a state effectively.
You're not in
Sort of
Austria.
Munich's in it though. So Freddie, you are in Bavaria right now.
Also, it had its own language, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty sure
Very,
people
very
have told me about that here, or at least it's a very strong dialect. But I should probably look more up for that with our future language episodes that I reckon we're going to have. So, Alistair, what fun stuff did you find? I can't remember what I set you as homework. I've got it here somewhere.
You said something about with chlorine in water was written down for one of my notes. Basically found out that there is chlorine in quite a lot of water. It's just like a very small amount makes it a bit nicer to drink, or not nicer, but it makes it a bit healthier. But if you are worried about it, if you boil any water for 15 minutes, you will get rid of all the chlorine in it. So that's a nice little.
I like it wasn't just a boil. It's like, if you just boil water, no, boil it for 15 minutes. Like you got to keep the hob going, or just little trick. If you open your kettle, the lid, it'll just keep boiling. It doesn't stop.
So
You know why?
You know?
like that, or you get some sellotape and tape the button down on the kettle, and any water you have left after 15 minutes is fine.
But it doesn't kill
Exactly.
viruses. Boiling water. That's why you should always filter dirty water if you got one.
We'll
Filter
wait for
through
summer
what?
with a bit of a.
N95
bit of summer.
charcoal.
N95 Mars. Viruses are tiny. Like surely they're
I
going through
know.
the fibers.
It's
of the
more
sock.
of like if you're in the wild, make sure to filter it with, if you can, charcoal and a sock, because then it means I think the charcoal neutralizes a bit, and the sock just filters out all the main like mud in it kind of stuff. So you'll get a little bit cleaner. It's like put rocks charcoal in
I
a
hope
sock.
it's like maybe the other way round, like the sock first.
Just make use of your charcoal and clean sock collection that you've got on your about your person at all times. So my main homework was on rum. That was kind of what I looked up a bit. Basically, a fair bit about molasses and why Caribbean rums are the best, basically for their sort of sugar production and the wide variety of that. We can give a little shout out to onthesourceagain.com for all this information. The Caribbean rum basically is superior because of this sort of wide variety of sugar canes. And yeah, there's like to do with the I don't know would you want to learn a bit more about the fermentation process? That was,
Yeah, well, I was
came up.
thinking about the home brews. Like, I'm kind of interested about how to make stuff. Johnny, what are you going to say?
As I learned a lot about, so the things I got written down as well as the Romans and fruit beer was distilling, difference between spirits, how is contra made, or contra, I don't know how to say that word, and then prohibition and spirits above 14%, which I learned a lot about for how we do stuff.
So let's see what Alistair says that you already know then, I guess.
Yeah.
Mr. Smite Pants.
So I think the distillation stuff was basically just you evaporate. Like I think we pretty much hit some out of the park. You just evaporate the alcohol. It boils at a lower temperature, so then it wafts off, and then you just condense it somewhere else, and then that what condenses is much stronger alcohol because it's just much stronger.
But don't forget you've got heads, body, and tails from distill. So about 75 degrees Celsius. The first, I think it's like what is it? X amount of how a percentage of the stuff will be methylated spirits. So that's what burns red. That makes you go blind. That's called the heads. That's the worst bit. If you just distill all of your liquid, you will probably kill yourself. So you need to first get the first bit out, chuck it away. Then you get the body. That's the good stuff. That you've made the alcohol. You keep that, and then you get the end half called tails, and you chuck that away again because that's just not good. And it's just distilling.
And how do you know when you've got from your head to your body to your tail?
Oh, a percentage. So I think, say if you have like 100 mils of stuff you're distilling, it'll be like a percentage of that. So the first 50 mils, say if you had a litre, the first 100 mil is bad, the next 70 mils is good, and then the next 20 is bad again.
Interesting. That's idea.
And that's how you get, because it was spirits above 14%, because anything is, which is mad, like vodka or like stuff like that. You just get potatoes, you mash them up, you put yeast in, and then you get the liquid from there, and that's what you distill. So you kind of sieve it out. So you have, and then that's when you boil it up to about like 75 degrees, and because you want to leave the water there, and you can get ciders and beers above 14%. Some things you can get super yeasts up to 21% because the yeast is able to you just I don't know if they're modified or they found the right yeast which is able to handle alcohol. But other things that he did is like fractional freezing, or called jacking. And what they do, this like freezing cider outside, so they get a massive barrel of cider, they leave it outside in the cold, and then you get these ice blocks forming. You take that all out, that's all the water freezing out. So then you're left with 20 to 25% cider, because you effectively, rather than distilling, as in you boil the alcohol off and keep that, you're freezing just the water because alcohol's got a lower freezing temperature. So that's another way of how they increase
I never thought about that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
so you boil it
freezing.
or you freeze it, which is cool. But obviously there's an upper limit. Yeah,
That's
how cool is
cool.
that? Yeah.
Now I'm thinking, like, you know, if you must have put a beer in the freezer and forgotten, right, and it's frozen / exploded.
Yeah.
If you take that ice out instead of waiting for it to defrost, mix it back in, and realise that's a bad idea. But if you take that ice out, have you got super beer?
I did it with Copperberg once, because once I left Copperberg in my mate's freezer, and it was just so perfect. There was ice crystals floating in the cider. So, as I said, it's kind of like you've got like ice crystals kissing your lips as you're drinking cider, which was just incredible. Try doing that again.
Copperberg is probably the furthest drink from like a real cider, to be fair.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Tried it again, and I think one was like it was too frozen, so you just had syrup, which was super strong. And then another time, they just blew up in my friend's freezer, and I was like, I'm really sorry, there's like pink crap everywhere.
And glass.
Yeah, it's like, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a classic thing of anything. Like when you get something so perfect and you try it again and it just doesn't work.
Yeah,
Like you try food for the first time somewhere and you try again, it's like nah,
just
nothing
not
like it.
high.
But Johnny just hijacked your.
Sorry,
point,
I got excited.
Just a little bit. I thought I haven't seen him this enthusiastic since he was talking about animals and circuses. So
I was so lost with Bitcoin. I was so lost. I still am. I tried looking it up more, and I still just don't get it enough.
That's brilliant, though. So I thought two quite funny things I thought. So a 96% is the cutoff for rum, because after that it's just ethanol, which I think is pretty sad anyway. And then there's this thing called Navy rum, which was basically, it doesn't actually exist. It's not a technical thing, but it's any rum that was over 57%, and it was called that because it was said that the rum served on the boats had to be strong enough to burn. So in case it leaked on the gunpowder, they'd have to be able to burn it. So it needed to be 57%, which I thought was quite funny.
Like, isn't that a thing? It's like powder proof or gunpowder, something.
Yeah, I've definitely heard. I know what you mean. Some powder. Yeah.
When people talk
But molasses. Do you guys know what molasses is? Did I explain that well enough?
You do now.
Treacle?
Yeah, it's basically like you boil sugar, then it turns into this, sort of the black stuff that comes off of it is the molasses, and that's what they used to sort of flavour the rums. And obviously, the more you ferment it with that, the sort of that's how you get the darker rums, and obviously the light ones are just distilled quicker, I think.
Is that?
And obviously they're kept in barrels and things to give them their better flavours and all sorts of stuff. Really. But yeah, so I don't know, it made me quite fancy a rum and something.
Do you remember those
That's sick.
Facebook videos against Coke when they would like look how much bad stuff is in Coke, and they would boil Coke down, and then you get this like tar at the back. But then if you have Diet Coke, they boil it down and it's all gone. There's nothing there, so it's therefore safer. But I'm assuming that's just when you boil Coke, you just get sugar and, not as you say, the molasses. Whereas the Diet Coke is kind of like, why isn't there anything left behind in Diet Coke?
Well, what is the one ingredient that Coke has that Diet Coke doesn't? Ooh. And also, this is the tar that like I don't know. The one that actually is quite convincing. That have you seen the one with the cigarettes where they put the cigarettes through that like sort of glass dome thing with cotton wool inside of it?
Oh
and it's got like a pump, and then he puts 100 cigarettes through it, and it's just like full of this like black goo, and it's very gross.
There's no escaping that.
Yeah. But vaping,
I was thinking where you're going with like, I was thinking like, because like Coca-Cola, you put like a penny in it and it comes out clean. So I was thinking you're going to say like, that thing they did where they put cigarettes in Coca-Cola and they dissolved. And then it took a wild turn with cotton wool. Yeah. Would you guys? Wait, is there anything else you wanted to say on rum before I?
Sorry, let me have. I think that was.
You said that Caribbean was the best stuff.
Yeah, so because the Caribbean, they've got this sort of very wide choice of sugar production, and so they've got lots of products to kind of choose from. Yeah, that was I mean, there's the difference between the pot and the chamber in terms of the distillation, but not super interesting. It's basically just one's a sort of long column, the other one's a pot with a sort of swan neck thing on it, which is it's quite pleasant. I mean, it's just the factories of everything like that. I think it's really, I know it's always quite interesting. Did you guys check out that Greg Wallace thing into the
I've
factory?
sadly not had time. I really did want to, but I haven't. It's still on my list.
I like the idea if it was Greg Davis instead of Greg Wallace doing it.
Just 1 week and see if anyone notices. Just switch him out without saying anything.
Really tall comedian.
And have this shot of him, so it's always just his chin. So it's just like... Yeah, that's brilliant.
He used to actually be a teacher, right?
Yeah.
He was
a drama teacher, yeah.
You'd hope he'd be, although he always makes jokes that he was a terrible teacher, but you never know if that's just him, for comedy's sake.
Yeah, Johnny, you haven't said about your Cointreau.
I know, it depends. I feel like you want to say stuff, Freddie, so I feel like I've been too excited about the knowledge I've learned.
Yeah, I'll just quickly speak about whiskey because I haven't got much, and then you can take the lead with your Cointreau. Okay, so whiskey is weirdly, I think the most important thing, an interesting thing I found out is that it's, to all intents and purposes, it's beer.
Huh.
Basically, the only difference between beer and whiskey is like maybe some fun procedures that the whiskey maker does with fermentation / the distillation to make it really strong, which you could do to a beer if you wanted to. You can distill beer to make it strong, but people don't generally, except for those crazy people in America who made like 60% beers, which I don't even know how they did that. The general method to making whiskey is you take a bunch of grains. There's a whole load of options with grains, just like beer. You prepare them by drying them, just like beer. You mash and cook them to make a wort, and then you ferment this wort. You would not want to drink the wort. Everyone says you don't want to drink the wort.
It doesn't sound like the most appetizing thing on the planet, to be fair, does it?
I know.
Oh, do you want to try some wort? Oh, you know what? I might be right there. I might pass.
Yeah, exactly. So you ferment it with yeast, as I'm sure you can imagine. You distill it, like Johnny was saying about taking the alcohols out and putting them back in to make it strong, and then you can age / finish it or whatever in barrels, which can be like fresh wood barrels, or they can be smoked barrels, or whatever. Generally, it's white oak, I think. This is all stuff you can theoretically do with beer. That's the fun thing. Like, really, it's interesting. There's a bunch of different arguments why they're different. But to an alien, maybe they're just different forms of the same drink. Who knows? Weirdly, I don't know. I just never really cared for whiskey, but I friggin' love beer. So I don't know if there's a huge taste thing there. But then I guess I could say that I really like, I don't know, lamb chops, but I hate eating lamb kidneys. So
I feel like you have salty chips or eating salt.
Yeah, sorry, Fred. Can you just reel off another about 10 or 15 of these examples? I'm a bit lost here, mate.
Yeah, sure. So you really like driving, but you hate being hit by a tractor. Wait, what?
That's the best one. That's definitely it.
Yeah. So then the fun stage is that you can mix and mingle, which is probably where like those connoisseurs really get their noses in a twist. That's right. I'm going to mix my metaphors as well about how you mix and what you mingle with. Although the pure stuff gets kept pure, in
the single malt and blended.
And then you can dilute it if you wish, which I never thought about, but I guess of course, maybe stuff is diluted if it's a bit too strong, and you can pop it in a bottle, and in theory, it never ever goes off. So, I mean, you can just leave it in a bottle forever. It doesn't mean it's going to make it taste better, but you can leave
it will evaporate though, right? Eventually, probably, maybe.
But in a sealed bottle, like not just like a cup on the side. But
might be wise. Might
okay,
be a good
so
shot.
quick question. I'm gonna give you a heads up. I'm gonna give you a quiz on the prohibition in a bit, and I'm gonna tally up points. But this is just a quick fun question for whiskey. What country consumes the most whiskey?
By volume or by per capita?
Volume.
I wanna say possibly, because I think it was like China invented whiskey first, and it was the Scots, and I think the Irish also have a claim to it. But I think China was the first to make it, so I'm going to say China just for sheer quantity of people there. And
Yeah,
if it came from there.
Yeah. I feel like any of these questions, if you go, oh yeah, Scotland or China, which one, by volume, it's not going to be that close, but per capita maybe, but no, I yeah, China I'd say probably.
You've
Well,
got to
in the
pick
US
one.
obviously
Go on.
maybe. Okay, I'll go US just to mix it up.
Okay, so drinking more than half the whiskey sold around the world every year, it is India.
No way.
Oh. I was thinking, oh, well, I mean, I don't know what I was going to base it on, but no, I didn't know that. Interesting.
That's cool.
There you go.
I got another one. Did you hear about the granddad who bought his grandson a bottle of whiskey every year for his birthday? And luckily he chose a whiskey which was it ended up being a valuable, popular whiskey. And each one was an 18-year-old. So when he was just born, he had an 18-year-old bottle of whiskey. First birthday, 18-year-old bottle of whiskey. Kept doing that. On his 18th, he'd got 18 bottles and they amassed £40,000 worth because they've increased in value by that much. Having an 18-year collection of 18-year bottles of whiskey. Just mad. And I was like, I think he initially said like it would be like for uni or something like that, but I mean, like, that's a nice gesture, but when you've got the idea of having a big collection, I feel you'd be like, I kind of just want to keep it. And then, would you drink it? Do you not drink it? Do you sell it? You know?
No, it's a solid investment, I think. Yeah, in terms, probably slightly better than Bitcoin at the moment. You could argue.
God damn it! I could see that coming. I mean, yeah, wasn't that one of? If I was given a bottle of whiskey every day for my birthday from when I was 18, I'd probably drunk it each time. But because by the time I'm like 16 or whenever you start drinking, like you've already got 16 bottle collection going. You're like, well, actually, I think I kind of will run with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, you win the most responsible dad award when what did you get your son for his second birthday? Oh, same as last year, mate. Nice big bottle of whiskey.
He doesn't seem to care that much. He's just crying in a corner.
I'll
Okay,
say
Johnny, you got to go. Come on.
Yeah, so contra. So I learned. So for a lot of things, how you distill it, you can get neutral alcohol, which I didn't know was a thing. So vodka is similar to neutral alcohol, but it's got a bit more flavour from the potato and whatever. So neutral alcohol is about 96% alcohol, and that's where they just distill it from. You can do it from anything, so sugar beets. You can do it from potato, whatever, and like really whatever country has the most of an organic material. So it's like, oh, like say in Caribbean they've got loads of sugar beet, so they use that as a standard. I guess in like in Scotland they'd have grain or whatever. So that's what a lot of stuff they end up just having the neutral alcohol and they mix it with stuff to infuse it, and that's where you get it. So like for gin, for instance, I think they may actually distill it, but sometimes it'll just be like you infuse the neutral alcohol with your flavours, and then you add water and sugar until you get to the right desired percentage. But contrary, how it's made is they have it of where they get neutral alcohol, which I find cool. They mash it with bitter and sweet orange peel. So bitter orange is just green oranges. Then they mush it all together. Then they distill it. So then you have from that mush, they then evaporate parts of that off, and then they mix that with sugar and water to get that kind of orange flavour. And usually with like new peels, you get that like awful tangy taste. When you distill it, that's lost in the process. So you don't need to worry about it. And the old peels that they use go as cattle feed, which is quite cool. Yeah, and also for neutral alcohols, even if they're made out of stuff with gluten in them, their gluten-free distilling process gets rid of those things which people are allergic to. So you never need to worry about having grain alcohol if you hyperceliac. Is that the word?
That sounds right. Celiac disease is the gluten one, so yeah, I think
that one. Yeah,
pretty sure.
Yeah, so it's quite cool. And so contra is 40%. Then you get triple sec, which is like 15%, which comes from Curacao triple or something. They're all orange, like alcohols.
I never thought about that, like that they're related. Don't know why.
Yeah, triple sec comes from Contra triple or something like that, and they're all based from peel and using alcohol or whatever. And the reason why Curacao is blue is because it's from the Caribbean originally, and blue looks tropical, and it's orange flavour.
You can see how that all started, can't you? Just like you've got, especially in like days of zero waste, not because it's trendy / the planet's dying, but because you're poor and you need to maintain like anything you've got. But so taking peels of stuff and being like, right, what can we do with this? And someone being like, guys, booze.
Let's load it up. Also, I like the idea of used orange peel, giving it to cattle, but like forgetting it's really, really alcoholic, so you just get loads of drunk cows. This doesn't help.
If the cow drank enough, if a cow drank enough, like, I mean, this is obviously unethical, but be alcoholic?
I mean, would that be same for us? If we drink enough alcohol, will our sweat be alcoholic? Well, yeah, because when you're breastfeeding, you're not meant to drink alcohol. Yeah, surely then, yeah, totally. So if you drink
I
enough
think, yeah.
strawberries, strawberry milkshake, and alcoholic strawberry milkshake, straight from the source. I saw.
Yeah, if you're gonna order, if you're gonna get a restaurant, if you got any alcoholic strawberry milkshake or anything, like, yeah, sorry, we just need to go out the back, get a cow drunk, give it a few months, Yeah, I think there might be an easy way to go about it, but
You guys talked about Baileys before. I don't know if
Yeah,
either of you looked it up.
yeah, I sort of think it was just, again, it was from that in the factory thing with Greg Wallace, not Greg Davis. Yeah, it's basically just like the fact that they had to, if you mix cream and whiskey together, it doesn't mix. So they had to put it through this like super high pressure thing to get it to just to create the sort of creamy texture. And I think with anything like that, as soon as you realise quite how much effort goes into it, it's like, wow, actually that's really gives you, I don't know, a bit more appreciation.
You got to think, how did they come up with that? And it's like, this cream and alcohol doesn't mix, but I'm gonna force it. How do I do that? Make a complicated machine. It's like something like What's-Its. The only way they're made is with a really specific machine that's not able to be done naturally. Like, how on earth did someone have to do science behind trying to get a What's-It? Or did they just... It's a big machine. How do you stumble across a big machine to make a What's-It? I don't know.
Yeah. The guy who made the what's it called, the Flaming Dr. Pepper, was accidental? I can't remember. But yeah, you see all these like bizarre things that are just commonplace now. And you think, yeah, I don't know. That's actually quite interesting.
Okay, well, for this next potentially final part of today's and this week's episode, I thought we could have a fun little Prohibition pop quiz. That's right. I'm going to ask you 8 questions that you can vaguely answer in any vague way on your paper, and then at the end we'll go through the answers, because sometimes it's fun to just put them all at the end. So anyone listening at home, feel free to Google along and check me, or just write down your own answers. Okay, so first question, starting off with some history. How long was the US prohibition for of alcohol, like full official 18th Amendment for?
I feel it's going to be those embarrassing things where it's like, there's so much history about prohibition. It's like, it's only 2 years long, they just really, really didn't like not having alcohol.
I was going to say it's more like 2 weeks because they realise they can't do it because everyone can just make it in their bathtubs. But...
Well, okay. Question 2. It's pretty much just a yes or no, but you can put why, like why you think it's true or false.
So you can put a Y or an N if you want, just to save time. Cheers, mate.
Across, just a line. Did World War One help or hinder prohibition?
Yes or no?
Well, you can put why, but you can put why you think. Yes, because they didn't have money for guns. They needed it for booze. I don't know. Okay.
So it turns out the whole English forces actually sold their weapons for booze to the Germans.
You never know. Okay. Number 3. Question 3. You only have to name one, maybe. What did prohibition actually ban? And you can't just put alcohol. That's not the answer. As in, what about alcohol did it ban? There's 3 answers here. You just need to get one of them.
Were we not meant to look up anything about prohibition?
No. It doesn't matter. Like, I just thought
Cool,
I'd
just
quiz
checking.
you.
Homework free pub quiz, mate. Pop quiz.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Okay. Question 4. Halfway mark. It's all right. What was a legal way to get hold of booze in the prohibition? During the prohibition. Like, what was a legal way to get hold of booze? Okay, question 5. This is a rapid pub quiz. What did some breweries do during prohibition to stay afloat, since they could no longer use their machines to sell alcohol or make alcohol? What did they do? There's a couple of options. It's a fun one. That was a fun little fact.
I'm guessing they didn't make anti-bac stuff like everyone has done in the pandemic.
They all made masks. N95 or FFP2 mask. Question 6. Approximately, and I'll give you within, let's say, 1,000. How many people are estimated to have died from homemade hooch? I can give you a clue if you want. It's at the time 0.008% of the population of the US.
I think that's quite large, isn't it?
That sounds quite a lot. That sounds like
It
about,
might throw
yeah.
you off more than you think, but you never know. Okay. 7. What did Roosevelt allegedly drink to celebrate the repeal of Prohibition? What drink? I'll give you a clue. It was alcoholic. And the final question is a nice, easy yes or no, but you can always put why. Did Prohibition decrease drinking in the US? That could be before, during, and after. I don't know why it would affect it before, but there we go. It's a time travel. Okay, we good? Sicky.
Yes.
I hope you kids at home joined in a little bit, or at least are interested in what the answers are. So we'll go.
Just listen. Just listen. If you don't want to listen, just while you're listening to the podcast, go away.
Yeah. Okay, right.
We never wanted to go to a pub
Number
quiz
one.
and not take part in it, but just listen to a pub quiz. That's the dream, right?
Maybe people like pub quizzes on YouTube just to fall asleep to. Who knows? Like,
There's got to be people who fall asleep to that. Woke up a little bit smarter.
yeah. Okay, so we won't waste too much time. Like, number one, how long do you reckon the Prohibition lasted?
10.
Johnny?
I'm gonna say 10 minutes because that's Zoom calls 10 years.
10 years, Alistair?
I was going 6 months.
13 years, nearly 14.
Wow.
Not 6 months. Wow, that's a long time,
So,
isn't it?
I wasn't sure what I expected, but I think in the end that was actually longer than I thought.
That's
Especially considering the USA's short history.
I see. Sorry, yeah, I'm with you.
It's so funny, isn't it? It's a short history. They didn't have knights. They did have cowboys, though. So, fair play, US.
Fun fact, guys, if anyone didn't know that.
It's like the same thing. Okay, Alistair, would you like to answer first? Do you think World War I helped or hindered Prohibition?
Yes. You like, this is a yes or no question, and you're like this.
You
No,
can
sorry.
say why.
I think it probably hit. I mean, what years were it to and from then? Sorry, the Prohibition. 13 years from.
1920 to 1933.
Okay, interesting.
That sounds like a painful yes.
I feel like it finished. Wait, was the First World War helped or hindered it then? Well, that was the First World War was
Did the
14 to
fact that
20,
World War-
14 to 19, right? So surely
So, like, if it started the year after World War One,
it's like the year after. So how did
it seems like it helped.
it basically sounds like it started. So Prohibition started after the end of the First World War and finished at the beginning of the Second.
Yeah. So do you think any of this? Basically, look, there's a link.
Okay.
I know that.
Okay.
What is it? I've wrote this down somewhere. Was it Canada? Yeah, they had during World War One. They had a prohibition, and England specifically didn't have a prohibition, or they did want one for World War One because they were like, it's not good for the troops. All this alcohol is bad. I mean, I don't know if alcohol is morale boosting or the opposite.
Well, basically, the point is that the World War One did help turn the nation in favour of prohibition because why? People are xenophobic. Basically, a lot of alcohol crusaders who, anti-alcohol kind of crusaders, they saw German brewing industry as a threat. They like German enemies, if you know what I mean. And so they argued that the Germans were like stealing money from them, and like it wasn't wasn't American to drink European beers or especially German beers. So that's helped the prohibition, if that makes sense.
No way.
Okay.
Yeah, do that.
Right. Maybe I have to rewrite my questions next time. Okay. Can either of you give me one thing that prohibition banned? Johnny?
Making alcohol.
Yep, correct. Alistair?
I put the sale of alcohol in pubs or anywhere.
Yes. The reason I asked this question is because it did not prohibit the drinking of alcohol. You could drink, and in fact, people hoarded alcohol in order to drink
But
during the prohibition.
I feel like, isn't that the case with all drugs. That it's not
Like drug bans.
illegal to be intoxicated, but it is for how you actually acquire the substance, isn't it?
Maybe. Don't know.
I was gonna say, this sounds like the classic like chat at a party. Oh yeah, it's, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Question 4. What was a legal way to buy booze during the Prohibition? Alistair, do you have anything?
I was just thought medicinal because they love a bit of alcohol and
Correct.
yeah.
That is correct. Johnny, did you put the same?
Communion as well. So like going to church.
Oh,
So
you know what? I don't know.
yeah, apparently
don't
the
know,
only
'cause-
two ways was medicine or church. And I'm guessing for communion.
Oh, there you go. I got done there.
Bread and wine.
I actually only had the.
Well, it's the opiate of the people, mate.
Medicinal
There's definitely
makes
a link
sense.
between the religion and
Okay. This is my favourite question. Question 5. What did some breweries do to stay afloat?
de-icer for cars, for car windscreens.
Cordial. Just making like blackcurrant juice instead.
Oh man, it's way more interesting.
We just like, what do they have in pubs that isn't alcoholic? A little cordial button. Yeah, we just went pretty hard on that.
55.
No, so some breweries turned to making things like ice cream. Some turned to making non-alcoholic beer, and then others, this is the fun part, made things like they're called wine bricks. It's like dehydrated, like prepared grapes that you then add water to and yeast, and people could make their own wine at home.
Oh, smart.
That's actually quite cool.
They also
Still
did the
getting
same-
people drunk.
Yeah, they also did the same with beer. People could add their own yeast and their own beer, which I'm sure tasted just great in their bathrooms. Which brings us on to the next question. Approximately how many people died from hooch? This is obviously a rough estimate and it's impossible really to know the true answer. But Alistair,
I went 300.
I put
300. So
10,000.
when I said within the nearest 1,000 and you put 300,
Oh.
What did you say, nearest 1,000?
I think so. People can
I
maybe work
said-
internet cut out.
300,000. No, I'll go 32,000 then.
32,000.
Sure.
Okay, fair enough. And Johnny?
10,000.
Oh, on the head. It was potentially a little more than 10,000 people died
Winner.
from poisoning.
There you go.
Obviously, rough estimate. And
So somewhere between 300 and 32,000, really. If you.
to be fair, bang on. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
The
dear.
population in 1933 at the end of Prohibition was about 125 million. And so that equates to about 0.008% of the population.
I should have passed the maths there. Hey, girl.
It's all right. Right. Second to last question, penultimate, number 7. What did Roosevelt allegedly drink on repeal? I mean, I'm guessing you guys just picked random drinks out of thin air, unless one of you knew
Is
it.
it a mint julep? Because I just feel that's like a classic Southern American drink. I don't know why. That feels like
That's a great song. Great
it-
song.
Is it julep?
But it's
Is
not.
it something like that? I can't remember.
Oh, well, funny you say
Um,
great song because I went with Pina Colada. So,
Also a great song.
also a great song.
It's a great.
Also probably wrong.
Yeah, Mint Julep. I can't remember who it was by. I would recommend listening to, as well as Pina Colada. If you listen to it. Allegedly, he drank a dirty martini.
It's called Escape, by the way. Not Pina Colada. There you go.
What's called Escape?
The Pina Colada song is called Escape.
I didn't know.
It's actually not called the Pina Colada song.
I think it's
Oh,
called
there you
Escape in brackets. The Pina Colada song.
go. Oh, right.
It's-
Well, anyway,
it's-
stop
have you
doing-
ever heard it? It's actually really weird. It's about like a dude who cheats on his wife and then meets up with another
wife.
woman who is then his wife. Yeah, it's a crazy plot twist.
Yeah, they both cheat on each other with each other.
Do either of you know what would make a dirty martini dirty?
Vodka? No, that is methanol. Not wrong.
Later,
You're
blind,
not
yeah.
wrong. It was well, you can add brine or olive juice
Ah,
to the gin and vermouth mix. So there you go.
Gross.
And the last question on this very strange pub quiz round is: did prohibition decrease drinking?
no.
Alistair? No.
I put no.
Johnny?
But no.
Yes, it did.
Oh, it did decrease it.
It yes, it decreased the drinking during by 70%, apparently, and afterwards, I can't remember if it was 30% less or something. Like there was actually less drinking after prohibition as well, despite the term roaring something, roaring 30s,
20s.
roaring 20s. I don't know. People thought that
Roaring 20s,
people went
yeah.
wild afterwards, but actually, they technically didn't drink as much as like that you thought.
They stayed chill.
Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my fun little.
Mate, the Roaring 20s, we are in them right now. The Roaring 20s,
Oh
I'll
yeah,
tell you what.
once again. But
This is definitely the COVID 20s.
what's it
Oh,
called?
mate, don't.
The 1910s, because ours is like the teenies, and I don't feel they called it back then. It's like, you know, oh, is it also the noughties for the 1900s? Like the start of.
Did enough stuff happen that they needed to do that?
I like the idea there's just no history. There's a
Nothing
certain
happened,
day
mate.
on BBC News, and there was no news to report, so they just played some music. Apparently, at the time, there was like some huge war going on in the Middle East, but just we weren't that well connected to know that was going on. But yeah, there's fully a time on BBC News, and they're like, "There's no news to report today." Obviously, before the time of when it's like, "Oh, a man was walking his dog and got on two back legs," and his little video of it. I don't know, anything
Okay.
makes news after that. Like light
That's
news.
news.
Nice you.
That is not, unfortunately not an issue we have in the modern day.
Oh, also,
Perhaps.
it's illegal to distill in the UK unless you have a license. By the way, that's one thing I learned. So
You
if
can
you want,
ferment.
yeah, you can ferment, but you can't distill. So if for home brewing, go ahead for anything that I guess you could technically do the jacking where you can freeze it, but you're not allowed to distill. That is illegal. I'm guessing because you make a methylated spirits, you can kill people doing that.
It's, the dangerousness of the going blind and everything. I think, I don't know.
Oh,
I feel like...
So do you see like the war? What apparently slavery and the Civil War delayed prohibition in America. That they've been wanting to do that, but then, yeah, the Civil War got in the way of that first, and then obviously until after World War One. Yeah, how much that?
What they'll say about. I wonder if like Brexit will be compared to like prohibition. Like the Britain left the EU between 2020 and.
This is widely
2033.
considered a bad move.
By historians and a lot of people at the time. Yeah.
Venezuela has a prohibition for 24 hours before every election, and also with Holy Week because there's an increase of crashes and stuff because that's the end of Lent.
Alcohol, completely ruined the indigenous communities in, Australia. I'm sure I've heard.
Oh yeah,
That's
and,
a really big
same
problem.
with Africa, because
I'm sure, yeah.
Because you suddenly bring in loads of so everything you've learned for how you function in your country, we're gonna just bring in first world problems and stuff, and you need to get a job now to get money to eat. Yeah, what you did before, that's not gonna be able to feed you, or they got government funding, kind of a bit like a benefit kind of thing, obviously for upsetting, and they just end up having alcohol, buying alcohol, getting drunk because suddenly it's like the thing that gave me purpose and my job is now I don't need to do anymore. They just give me money, and you lose all sense of person. I feel
Because we're the bad guys.
Yeah, we're the bad guys.
Yeah, we are. Anyway, is there anything that you guys wanted to add before I throw away?
Probably just chop the end off.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Johnny and Alistair, for your looking up some stuff from the week gone past. I hope you listeners, wherever you are, have thoroughly enjoyed our episode and enjoyed your drink that you accompanied it with. This has been Freddie, Alistair and Johnny on this week's episode of No Idea Yet.
If you've enjoyed this podcast and has actually made it to the end, please consider following us on Instagram at No Idea Yet Podcast. And if you have any ideas or topics that we could talk about, feel free to either message us there or send us an email at noideayetpodcast@gmail.com.